Okay, so my name's Meg John. I don't know if any of you have seen around whatever, but I had this whole jumping beyond borders thing. That was kind of my whatever. So I'm just going to take these off because it's not really TBB fashion. But in order to get here, I just did this a lot. So I'm from Vermont. I'm, as I said, Meg John. And I want to share with you a little bit about my experience. So, who is this Meg John that you see standing before you? For starters, I'm a human being. And somehow the only human being to be this particular Meg in the whole wide world. Which, you know, whatever. Yet inside the mind of Meg, there's a bit of chaos, and I like to call it the mega cloud. And I like to think of it as a crazy office space. Picture papers flying everywhere and coffee cups spilling and just craziness, yeah? And within that, there's millions of sub-Megs running around, doing different things. There's the Meg who races around in society, trying to fit in and learn things, change the world. There's the theatrical Meg who sings in the kitchen, dances in the kitchen, sings in the shower, sometimes alternatively, There's the Meg who likes to talk, and there's also a Meg who likes to listen. There's the Meg who likes to jump. There's a Meg who likes answers, and there's a Meg who likes questions. There's a Meg who likes to talk about wild nature poops in public blog posts, and there's the Meg who's horrendously embarrassed that she would ever say something like that. So there are millions of Megs, and millions that join the office as Megs continue to discover new Megs. And I did not come back after 6 months with a fleet of answers or a completely new self. The Megs I was before this trip are still there, and in some ways I'm the same. But in other ways, post-trip, there have been more Megs added that have affected the old-timer Megs. And these added Megs provide areas of questions, contrast, personal vulnerabilities. So as I've lived out my life to this point, I've realized that sometimes it's really hard for all the Megs to get everyone in the office to work together, collaborate, to share some ideas, or it can be really tricky. So how do I make my reality and thought process from the mega cloud transparent to other realities? So today, I really want to share a slice of Meg, because to share it all would be way over my head. So, I may not have mentioned her before, but there's a visionary Meg, the one who likes to dream big and ambitiously, the one who likes to be active and doing things, the one who does like to leave the mega cloud and work with others. So about midway through China, where we're studying agriculture, I had this idea, this concept to bring back with me. I'm going to Goucher College in the fall, I'm planning on attending there. Hopefully they're ready for me. But I had this image of transforming the college campus, planting gardens throughout the lawns, having them weave through, looking at how to make our food sustainable, healthy, to really get that vibe. But also to bring people together, to bring people from all over different realities together. I wanted environmentalists working on this garden to make it environmentally friendly. I wanted people who knew and understood farming to come in and experiment with different types of farming. I wanted architects, artists to come in and design it. I wanted business majors to come in and find a way to make it profitable, to maybe we could sell to our cafeteria and we could have a student-run business that would just be our campus. And for me, it was to bring people, even as far apart as you might think they would be, together into a community. That was my dream. And a huge part of it was to celebrate the abundance of human thought, creativity, the ability to come together, share ideas, new perspectives. So this garden for me sets the stage for the questions, some of them, that I'm wrestling with. I'm struggling to understand myself and all of the Megs that take part in that, especially as waves of new Megs keep coming through the door, such as the agent of change Meg, who aims to recognize focal points of thought, paradigms. Who am I as an agent of change? And what is my role if I start taking action to change things? There's no clear job description, but at the same time, how could there be? How could an agent of change be given clear bullet point steps of action? The thing they're dealing with is change. The thing that has no true traits except being a constant. How do I embrace my agency with change? Something that we also all have in us. How do I embrace the impact I have on this globe? I truly believe that each of us causes an impact. Just by existing, you create a dimension of life. That dimension impacts your surroundings, and if you were to leave, that would also create an impact. And even that ability to come and to go is relative, and that causes an impact. So how will visionary Meg act on it? How would thoughtful Meg react to it? What will Megaloo be impacting when she's 32? I could go to Goucher, and I could push this idea of a garden authoritatively and push people to agree that what I think is best, that going into the future, this is what we need to do, and I could trust myself to know that I've done this great experience and I know. But it's this pushing, this seeking and giving of answers that doesn't sit right with me anymore. It begins to imply something that you might not know, or that I have the power and I have this great thought and you should listen to me because I know what I'm doing. This I'm right, you're wrong. I really do walk with values that say equality for all, that say do not leave voices or points of view behind. Would presenting my vision of a garden do this? And this presentation, would I be stepping into a role of leadership? So for me, this question ties in, does becoming an agent of change also mean becoming a leader? Then what do I do? How does a leader exhibit drive and vision without crushing other people's realities and voice? Without pushing and giving answers? Leadership is a struggle for me. I see leadership in my life as having negative connotations to it in contrast of what people tell me. I feel that if I become a leader, I speak over people's voices. So how can I orchestrate my voice in an equal way while also leaving space for other voices to have an equal amount of impact and agency? Before this trip, I was in this mindset of searching for fulfillment and purpose, and I believed that helping the world and contributing to aid work would be a path that would make sense because there are global issues. Our environment is struggling. Our agriculture system does need serious improvement, especially in the United States. India, where we studied education, education is such an important part of our lives. And we have so much to work on, so much to improve, but it's always evolving. Healthcare access and facilities does need to be taken seriously, and action does need to happen. We need to take action on making all of it better, but not at the cost for me of blind following. I was so ready to jump into solutions, literally and figuratively, that others provided me with, or to find them. I didn't really want to think more about these issues. I wanted visionary Meg to swoop in and do what she does best. While we were abroad, we focused on developmental projects. What I thought was going to be service learning and a pat on the back for a job well done, in fact, turned out to be deep critical analysis of what the realities of development are. I'm not anywhere near to being an expert, by the way. It's very complicated. We focused on questions that asked, was this helpful? Was this harmful? And an article we read in Jaipur, India, which you might hear referenced in a lot of our speeches by Ivan Illich, hit home for a lot of us. This concept that good intentions, no matter how good or strong they start off as, can be detrimental to creating positive change. There's an element that can make well-intentioned ideas fold or even create more harm than good. So I came across this image of hot and cold from a woman named Jennifer who works at an organization called Oxfam in the context of aid money. And Oxfam, just as a little background, focuses on development work, but specifically the person-to-person contact and relationships and the how development happens. I liked her image because I felt it showed a side of the complications of aid money, of development, of sharing ideas. And she showed two different angles to aid money. She described cold money as money that is given, inserted into areas. Inserted into areas to pull people out of problems. It is money that doesn't really have personality to it. There aren't necessarily faces behind it. No one knows exactly where it comes from. I mean, sometimes people know, but it's impersonal. It's put in, it's inserted. It's to help make things better. Sometimes it has restrictions on it that allow people only to use it if they do X, Y, Z. Sometimes those restrictions exist, so that the money is actually used for what the money is intended for, which makes sense. However, while I was in Bua, Ecuador, I read this book, Cradle to Cradle, by William McDonough and Michael Brongard. And they make this point that ultimately a regulation is a signal of design failure. That if you have to put restrictions on how things are done, you're not getting to the point of what you're trying to do. An influx of random money, not necessarily random, but money that's just inserted into situations, can create scenarios in which communities become dependent on an unreliable and faraway source, which can cause an inability to truly break the unhealthy realities at hand that we all ultimately want to end. And this happens abroad, but also within our own countries. But what does that tangibly look like? As I've kind of alluded, I often see it's development projects funded to create positive change, great intentions, but working with preconceived ideas as to how to best fix the problem. So in contrast to that, hot money is when people or a community works for the money. They understand where it comes from. They feel connected to it, protected of it. They've earned it. It can be donated. It can come in the form of aid. But the distinction is that people on both ends are truly engaged and involved with what that money means. People are reaching out from both ends. There's like a connection. For example, I would not be on this trip without scholarship money or aid. And I really do think that aid is an important part of interaction and connections. I think that's really helpful. I wouldn't be here without it. And I consider it hot money because the dollars I raised were, one, really personal to me. They impacted me pretty severely. And the terms of the money were understood on both ends. Both sides came together and found common ground for what I see as making positive change, even if it was just in the form of supporting me. Feeling that trust and support from other people and knowing many of their faces made me feel very protective and responsible for keeping my side of the bargain. I was going to travel. I was going to push myself to think. I was going to push myself into experiences that who knows where they would take me. And it happened because of the people that the money then fit into, but it was the people. Based on relationships, based on trust. So, thanks for still listening, you guys are great. So this is a step in understanding where I'm at. It's a step in understanding my role for myself as an agent of change and what it means to insert an idea. I learned about development while I was abroad of myself and physical projects. And as I said, I was so ready to go into developing countries and contribute to saving the world, one effort at a time. There really wasn't any saving on my end. My host families fed me, they gave me shelter, they taught me how to live in a lot of ways, they taught me how to cook, they put up with my language disabilities, and showed me there are so many different ways to greet life. I was another kid for them. Going into an area and assuming that you have a solution for humongous and complicated problems is pretty boastful. And what in the world does it mean to be developed? We asked this all year and we never answered it. To put expectations on what a well-off country looks like is to favor a set of biased assumptions, cultural realities, elements that disregard and belittle other people's voices, beliefs, cultures. dignity, which in the long run, how will that help to improve anything on a sustainable level? And by sustainable in this context, I mean preserving cultural dignity, creating positive change for the long run, versus making a temporary fix or causing more damage. Who decided who was developed, who was developing? Do we not all have our fair share of issues? And I do understand that there are issues in which international aid can be incredibly helpful, but the terminology completely misses the reality. If you had money you could give to a friend, if you didn't have enough, or even a suggestion to how they could do something better, would you call yourselves better than them? Believe that you've got it right? Would you show them pity? Would you disregard their dignity, disregard their strengths? How do you help a friend? I used to think the hurdle was in thinking of what to do, because then you could just get people on your side and behind you, get things cracking. PolYMeg. There are many issues in the world, many people eager to fix them, and many people working on them, and yet there are still issues. And I don't mean to discredit other people or what they're working on, because there are amazing agents of change in our world. It is truly beautiful, some of the connections and people I've met. And there's an element that TBB helped me to see. It's the side of questioning, the process that led me to this project or an idea of a garden. Having gone through this journey of TBB makes this garden make sense. The process and the journey showed me why I want to spend my energies working on a garden. It warmed the idea up for me. The garden itself is an idea on how to act on what I've been through. It is a product. Products can change. Perhaps the garden is a cold idea. If I went to Goucher tomorrow and said, blah, here's my idea, let's do it, would it work? Would it be what I wanted? I mean, people, probably not. It would probably be a development project wanting to make big change that only some people would jump on board with. Does inserting answers, such as ideas on how to fix things, in essence, development, as a form of doing things right, really contribute to stopping horrendous global issues? One of my group members wrote in an activity once we returned to the States that answers allow you to wipe your hands of ideas and topics. They end the learning process. This posed the idea that answers can be safety baskets. They can make you feel like it's all good, that there's a right and a wrong way of doing something, that there's a finish line to reach. Answers can make you stop thinking. Meg was shattered. If I implemented this garden or solution, would I in fact be taking away the element of a creativity, imagination, just because I provided an answer, a solution, because I told people to be creative, to be imaginative? Do giving answers really liberate people into being able to use their brains? So as an agent of change, do I then try and provide an experience, a journey for those around me to come to conclusions, to decide what makes them passionate, to encourage them to come to their own conclusions? Do I stop trying to find answers? Perhaps that's what it means to be an agent of change. It's hard for me to wrap my head around it, but I would like to stop thinking in answers, in yes and no's and black and whites. I'd like to try and really value the process of reaching ideas together, to work with people, live a journey with them, so that we can reach a point where people are encouraged to spread their creativity and their imagination. However, answers do serve a purpose, and I don't believe we could ever exile them completely. I'd like to find a balance between the journey and the reaching of destinations. My garden idea is an idea relevant to the last 6 months of traveling. It's relevant to living in Shibian, China, and the culture around food, combined with where I see we can contribute to a happy, healthier world. It comes with my assumptions, my biases, how I see the world through my lenses. Just because I think it's the right thing doesn't mean it's the right thing for the Goucher. Answers are relative. Our realities and experiences come from different places. Do I believe I shouldn't share my voice at Goucher about a garden? Not at all. All voices deserve to be heard, including mine. To decide to never offer an idea because it might be harmful could be just as bad as offering one. If people never spoke out about their ideas, where would our world of humans be? For me, sharing the idea versus imposing it takes shape in valuing the process of getting to an idea, taking the time to get to know each other. Be able to first settle in an area before jumping into ideas and answers. Working with people, not against them, not for them. It's not about jumping on board with answers and solutions that will supposedly liberate everybody. This garden is specific to my vision. So how do I step from the podium of initiating and potentially imposing a project to create change so that others can be involved, invested, and passionate about it? So that in a sense, it no longer becomes my idea, but an idea. So that it becomes an idea where voices aren't overpowered, other ideas not overlooked. Can I listen beyond finding a place to insert my idea and instead listen to let go of my idea? Listen without having an agenda behind it. So will I go to Goucher? Will I go and build a garden in real life? I really don't know. This trip, as I've said, didn't give me all of my answers and tie up my beliefs in a pretty box of ribbon. A block of time will never be enough to understand the world, or who we are, or who I am, who all my sub-Megs are. The thoughts I wanted to share with you today were, if I try to save the world, answers and solutions are only as good as my realities and my experiences. And those are tied with bias and assumptions. There are too many dimensions on our planet, too many angles for an answer to exist. There will always be exceptions to our answers. I recognize now value in the process of learning with a constant flow of experimenting that will sometimes settle on answers, but never too long, because I truly believe there are just so many questions to be asked. And I'm working towards a mindset that can always be expanded and that always questions our realities. To be able to harness the fluidity of thought, we must at times let the paradigms of our lives release and shift. The agent of change, Meg, is still trying to understand her role. Can she find a way to be an agent of change, to be a leader that doesn't impose on other people's dignity or their voices? Perhaps she becomes one in the masses, building strong relationships so that a network of people can understand each other, so that empathy with people can grow, which could build trust and then perhaps gardens. Or perhaps it will be something completely different. What I've said here today is jam-packed with my own biases, my own assumptions, and it's not meant to present answers. It's just merely to share with you a slice of Meg.